Ugochinyere, Chairman, Downstream Petrol. Let me apologize to our invited guests for starting late. We had an ongoing committee engagement that got into our time small, so we are deeply sorry for that. Let me stand on the existing protocol. Distinguished leaders and representatives of DAPMAN, IPMAN, and MOMAN, esteemed members of this great committee, gentlemen of the press, I welcome you all on behalf of the House of Representative Committee on Petroleum Resources Downstream to this important gathering. We are here today not to interrogate, not to accuse, and not to put anyone on trial. We are here to listen. We are here to talk to one another as partners who share one common destiny. In Nigeria, where energy is affordable, where supply is stable, and where no citizen is made to suffer for products that should ordinarily be within reach. For too long, this relationship between the National Assembly and the men and women who move fuel from vessel to depot, from depot to station, and from station to the ordinary Nigerian has been conducted at a distance. We have read about you in the news. We have heard about your struggles in reports. We have debated your challenges in our chambers, often without you in the room to speak for yourself. That era ends today. This committee has resolved that no policy affecting the downstream sector will be shaped in the dark. We cannot regulate what we do not understand, and we cannot understand what we have not heard directly from those who live it every single day. That is why we have summoned you not to a hearing, but to a conversation. That is why this room is small, deliberately, so that we can speak plainly and hear plainly without the theater that sometimes accompanies large engagements. Nigeria stands at a defining moment in her energy history. Domestic refining capacity is growing. Importation dynamics are shifting. Pipeline security remains a national priority. And through it all, you, the marketers, the depot owners, the independent operators, and the major players are the bridge between policy and the pump. When that bridge is strong, Nigeria feels it in a stable prices and steady supply. When that bridge is strained, the whole nation feels it too. So today, we ask you to speak freely. Tell us where importation regulation help you and where they hurt you. Tell us what domestic refining truly means for your businesses and for the millions of Nigerians who depend on you. Tell us plainly, how do we resolve the tension that keeps coming up between independent domestic refiners and importers? Tell us about how to resolve those issues surrounding issues of import license vis-à-vis domestic refining. Tell us what has worked, what has failed, and what this committee must do differently. We are prepared to listen with open minds and to act with open hearts, guided only by national interests. We are committed to amending existing legislation, drafting solution legislation that will protect national domestic interests and remove all areas of dispute and tension. We desire to hear from you on a sustainable solution on a win-win basis that will help both domestic refining, importation, and also how we can secure energy security where all players can benefit. We are committed towards a well-defined and clear legislation in a bid to resolve all issues to ensure stability. A technical committee is drafting the legislation and amendment. This meeting is to find a solution that have national interest and competitive business practices at its core. Let it be said from this day forward that this committee chose partnership over suspicion, dialogue over decree, understanding over assumption. Let it be said that when the history of Nigerian downstream sector reform is written, this briefing session marked the moment when marketers and lawmakers stopped talking past each other and started building the future together. I therefore, in conclusion, urge every representative in this room to speak boldly, to speak honestly, and to speak in the interest of the Nigerian people we ultimately serve. This committee is ready, Nigeria is watching, and history is waiting to be made, not by any one of us alone, but by all of us together. I thank you, and once again welcome you to this session. And I must add that other stakeholders like the NNPRA, the domestic refining groups, and other stakeholders will also be meeting with this committee before we come to a final decision. Thank you, and God bless. The issue of your view on prices going up and down. Okay, you answered it. Okay. Thank you so much. Let me appreciate my distinguished honorable colleagues for making our time, even though we are on recess, to be here at this phase of this interaction. And also thank in a special way the leadership of Dapman, Moman, Ipman. While we are having the conversation, the president of Petron came in, but he's not for this session. He will be appearing when the regulators and other groups are coming. And to our distinguished guest, this is the phase of our interaction. We'll be meeting with the regulator, the NNPRA, NUPRC, and the refiners, both the modular refinery owners and the big-time refinery owners, and also with NPA and other regulatory bodies, both CBN, on the issues that have been raised. Because this will form part of our downstream reform, both for the amendment of the PIA and for the motions that will move on some of the issues that need to be corrected. And that is why we needed to meet with you people. So, and also, we have taken a special note of the issue you raised on the issue of dollar-denominated charges by the Nigerian Ports Authority. And just like our colleague Siri said, that it's not good for the economy that at this point that the FS market have stabilized, that we should be charging people who are dealing with domestic downstream activities in dollar. That affects the pump price of the PMS. So that we have also taken note of. We have also taken note of what you said about the lopsidedness in the issuance of the import license, where you talked about both the first quarter, second quarter, and third quarter was given to a particular set of people. Those questions, we're going to raise it when NNPRA comes here to find out on how they arrive at the parameters they use in issuing those licenses. So we looked at all those issues, and then the one that has to do with the safe transport corridor, we'll also take up with the Ministry of Works on how to ensure that the corridors for transportation is safe and accessible for those who are dealing in transportation of those petroleum products. One other issue that we'll ask you people to help us, maybe when you are submitting your additional submissions, is that because we are looking for solutions. One, this issue of domestic refining and importation is issues that we should not shy away from. First of all, how do we protect and encourage owners of domestic refineries? And how do we also protect and the business of importation in terms of, are we going to continue importing the way we have been importing before the coming of these refineries, knowing fully well that more refineries are coming up? So in a matter of 4, 5, 10 years, we may have up to big 5 or 6 refineries. So now, and then how do we ensure national energy security in terms of backup, like you said, in case if there's any issues with our refineries, that the country can continue to run smoothly without any problem. So you need to submit to this committee an honest suggestion of, it mustn't be an immediate solution, but how do we find a balance between these issues? Because yes, these refineries are coming up, we must accept that. And also these markets, as what they like to have built infrastructures over the years, we must also accept that. So how do we, as we are having these refineries, either have a system whereby those who are into the business of refining must find a relationship with marketers in terms of how to build a chain that continue to sustain their businesses. And then the marketers must also find a way that we cannot continue to import the volume that we used to import before the coming of this refinery. So we now agree, how do we now find a middle ground of this is what should be imported at any given time as a matter of national energy security to protect the country and immune it from crisis. But we can't run away, because this is the reason why there have been these tensions over and over again. So we have to look at these issues, and we're banking on the deep knowledge you people have in the industry to say, okay, this is the transition process, this is how it's going to be in terms of the relationship that should exist between owners of domestic refineries and marketers, and the future status of importation, how it can be regulated. These issues are very important to this committee, and want to propose those motions and legislation that will help to resolve it before the end of this our assembly. So it's very important that you guide us in providing those information. So when we now hear from the NNPRA, both from the NNPRA and other stakeholders, we'll get back to you people before we now make a decision as a committee. So on that note, I want to thank our distinguished guests for making our time to come here, and also appreciate my colleagues who made contribution for making our time to come here. Thank you all.